Today I'd like to talk about the meaning of grace from harm and harm from grace. A phrase from the Ilwansang vow, one of the most important chants in Won Buddhism that we just recited. During our last retreat, someone asked about this phrase. Actually, that person submitted this question for the Q&A session. And I realized that even in our main scripture, the red Won Buddhist canon, there isn't a direct explanation of this meaning. So I thought maybe this is something worth exploring in a Dharma talk. So grace from harm means that grace can arise out of harm. In other words, even painful or difficult situations can be transformed into moments of gratitude and growth. And we are the alchemists who perform that transformation. We all experience events that seem unfortunate, moments that upset us or bring pain and loss. Yet, within those very moments, grace often reveals itself in an unexpected way. So I recently came across a story that touched me deeply. So let me share the story with you. One day, a couple's middle school son caused a traffic accident while riding his bike. He was speeding downhill when he hit a rock, flew off the bike, and crashed into the windshield of a parked car. The glass shattered, absorbing the impact, and the boy escaped with only minor scratches. I think Kathy is related with this story because her younger son had a car accident 2 weeks ago. And the parents immediately went to find the car owner, and it was a brand new car, barely 6 months old, and the owner looked understandably upset. The couple bowed deeply and said, "We are truly sorry for damaging your new car. We filed an insurance claim, but if it doesn't cover everything, we'll gladly make up the rest. And we also want to thank you from the bottom of our heart, because your car was parked there. It absorbed impact and saves our child's life. We'll always remember you as a lifelong blessing." So the couple could easily have been angry or anxious about their son's carelessness and yell at the boy. But instead, they chose gratitude. And their sincere words softened the car owner's heart. So we realized that by chance, his parked car saved a young boy's life. What could have been a frustrating and unlucky event suddenly became something beautiful. The same event that first appeared as harm became grace, both for the parent and for him. And later, the parents sent the car owner a heartfelt gift along with handwritten letters, both from themselves and their son. And the owner replied warmly, asking how the boy was recovering, and even sent him an ice cream gift. So because of this shift in perspective, what could have been ended in blame and bitterness became a story of kindness and human connection. So we can understand the grace from harm in two ways. First, as this story shows, whether something is a harm or a grace depends entirely on how we perceive it. In that sense, no event is inherently fortunate or unfortunate. It is our mind that gives it such a name. And second, when we do not give up in the face of a hardship, but keep moving forward, that very experience eventually becomes the source of our growth. For me, the difficult experiences and confusion I went through in my 20s have now become the source of a more open heart and deeper empathy. I don't think I would have chosen the spiritual path of a one Buddhist minister without those inner struggles. And also, some of the traits that once made me feel small, like lack of energy or a tendency to procrastination, those are what led me to turn inward for reflection and seek discipline in both my body and my mind. So through these experiences, I came to understand others who also blame themselves for a lack of direction or discipline or willpower. It helped me to connect with them more deeply and inspired me to support those who are walking through similar struggles. So what once felt like weakness has become a teacher, guiding me toward compassion and steadiness and practice. So in both ways of interpreting the meaning of grace from harm, the same truth remains. In any situation, we can find or create grace. Then what is life? Is life suffering or grace? The Buddha said that life inevitably includes suffering. The four or even the 8 great sufferings that we all can't avoid in life. Master Sotesa, on the other hand, reminded us that all is grace. What is true? Both are true. It simply depends on the lens through which we see life. Now we are in the middle of this beautiful fall season, and the air feels cooler, and I think it's the most beautiful season here at the One Dharma Center. And today, I think it's maybe around 50 degrees, right? I remember when I first moved to Los Angeles after being ordained. Back then, I wasn't used to Fahrenheit yet. In Korea, people use Celsius. So I just remember the number 50. So when I heard the weather report say it's 50 degrees, then I thought, oh, it's going to be a chilly day today. And yes, in Los Angeles, 50 degrees really did feel chilly to me. And 5 years later, I moved to Chicago to serve at the one Buddhist temple there. And people would say, winters are much milder now than it used to be decades ago because of the global warming. But it was still bitterly cold and windy, and sometimes dropping below zero. And one winter day, I stepped outside and thought, it feels kind of warm today. And I checked the weather, and it was 50 degrees. And the people I met that day were even saying, oh, it feels like spring. So is 50 degrees chilly or warm? And a few months after moving to Los Angeles, I was driving with the window down when I suddenly smelled something nice, something earthy and herbal. A bit like todok, a Korean root herb. So I took a deep breath to enjoy it until somebody in the car said, "That's a skunk." I'd never smelled a real skunk before. I just know it by its name. I knew it by its name. And the moment I heard the word skunk, you know, the pleasant herbal scent, instantly turned into a terrible odor. So I quickly rolled up the window. So does a skunk smell good or bad? So through these experiences, I realized how the way we name a situation changes how we experience it. So our mind and brain are easily influenced, sometimes even deceived by how we label things. One of the sufferings the Buddha spoke of is the pain of separation from those we love. So we all experience that heartbreak, whether it's the loss of a partner, a family member, or a dear friend, or an unwanted breakup. If we dwell only on the sadness and loss, that sorrow can slowly eat away at our hearts. But there is another way to hold the pain with gratitude. When we reflect on how precious it was to have shared time and love with that person, and when we focus on the gratitude for those moments rather than their absence, something begins to shift within us. The separation, which could have remained only as pain, becomes a quiet grace that deepens our heart and expands our capacity to love without clinging. And again, it is we ourselves who create this transformation. So yesterday morning, I went to the kitchen in the administration building at 6 a.m. to prepare breakfast for the retreat group. And for some reason, the path from the minister's residence to the administration building was completely dark. So probably because the street lights that should have been on weren't working. So as I walked down the hill, I thought, something's wrong. I should report this to Reverend Park. This is too dangerous and someone could get hurt. Maybe I was feeling a bit anxious. So when I arrived at the kitchen, I saw that Reverend Jieun was already there. And I said, it's strange, the path was so dark this morning. Reverend Jieun didn't catch my anxious tone and cheerfully replied, did you see the stars? They were so bright and beautiful today. I thought, of course the stars are bright because there were no lights. And at that moment, I realized how differently two minds can perceive the same situation. I only saw the danger and inconvenience in the darkness, but she saw beauty and wonder. The darkness that made me uneasy was the very reason she could see the brilliance of the stars. So the same darkness that makes us stumble can also reveal the light that we otherwise overlook. So it's often impossible to understand the meaning of a certain event in our lives while they are happening. We may feel angry or lost or resentful, asking, why? Right? Why me? But let's not rush to label the difficult situations as bad luck or hardship. Grace can arise even from what seems like harm, as long as we don't give up on ourselves. It is not determined by others, but by how we choose to respond. The power to turn harm into grace is always within us. That's the message of grace from harm. Now let's look at the other side, harm from grace. It would be nice if grace always remained grace forever. But harm from grace, this means that even something good or fortunate can turn into harm if we are not mindful. A simple example might be someone born into a wealthy family. They receive everything they need, protection, comfort, and support. But because they've never faced real hardship, they might grow up lacking resilience or the ability to stand on their own. The grace of abundance can turn into harm when it leads to dependency or complacency. So let me give you another example. Everyone who visits the One Dharma Center praises how beautiful this place is and how clean and peaceful the guest houses are. So, is it grace or harm to live here as a minister? Do you want to live here? So honestly, when I first came here, I thought it was harm. It was 9 years ago. I had served in the local temples for 10 years before moving here. And the One Dharma Center felt very different from those local temples. This is large compared to the local temples. And this is retreat center, not a temple. With a completely different responsibilities and rhythms. I felt unsure of myself, thinking I may not be good at this kind of work. Managing all different kinds of work that I needed to maintain this huge facility. So I hope to be assigned to another temple. But I was sent here anyway. So at the beginning, it felt like harm. To tell the truth, when I saw the announcement online that I was assigned to here at the One Dharma Center, I was disappointed. So at first, it felt like harm. But as soon as I arrived here, I loved it, being here. And now I feel so grateful every day. I mean it, every day. I'm so grateful to live in this beautiful environment with those wonderful ministers and staff, and to practice with so many sincere practitioners like all of you here. People who come here are those who are so sincere and want to practice and grow. It's good energy here. And I've also grown more comfortable handling different responsibilities here. So what once felt like harm has turned into grace. Then, is it grace to live here? One Buddhist ministers are periodically rotated to different locations through the process, though it can be much more flexible here in the United States than it is in Korea, because of lack of the facilities and temples and the number of ministers. But when my time comes to move, if I become too attached to this place, if I don't want to leave, or if after moving, I start comparing and complaining, then that's the moment then grace turns into harm because of the attachment. So living in One Dharma Center as a minister is neither harm nor grace. It can be harm or it can be grace. So when good things happen to us, let's remember that everything changes and nothing truly belongs to us. Let us simply and humbly appreciate whatever situation we are in and let go when it's time. This is how we can wisely rejoice in grace and avoid turning grace into harm. And when something difficult or painful happens, let's remember that we can still find grace in any situation. Everything changes. And we have the power to bring about the change we want. So let's not give up. Let's keep walking forward with the right effort and a steady heart. This is how we create grace from harm. So there is no event or situation that is inherently good or bad. The mental labels of good and bad are temporary, maybe relative. In the deeper sense, all is grace. The grace that transcends good or bad, and grace or harm. So let me finish this talk with a closing prayer. So place your palms together. Dharmakaya Buddha fourfold grace. How grateful we are to have learned the principle of grace from harm and harm from grace. A profound and powerful guideline for life. May we not be overwhelmed or defeated when we face hardship, but find the courage to stand firm and discover grace even in difficult moments. With that strength, may we keep walking forward on the right path, growing in wisdom and compassion each day. When blessings and joyful moments come our way, may we rejoice in them with humble gratitude and a heart willing to share, so that we do not become proud or attached. Through both joy and sorrow, may we come to see that even in pain, there is grace. And within grace, the power of transformation, reminding us that even grace can turn into harm if we lose mindfulness. May we remember that we are the ones who bring about this change. May we awaken to this truth and live each day in the realization that all is grace, dwelling in peace and harmony, here and now, in this very paradise. Thank you for listening.